Hi everyone, very good to see you again. During this video, I'm going to discuss the inputs and outputs of solution evaluation. Let me share my screen with you and we can get started. So here we go, solution evaluation, specifically looking at a view of the inputs and the outputs. Just again to show you where we are in the BABOK guide, we are now looking at chapter 8, which is the last knowledge area in the BABOK guide. So for your best understanding, please make sure that you also watch the video solution evaluation, which is week 6 of the BABOK study group. Have a look at parts 1 and 2 of that video, and that will just help you to be able to put more context to what I'm going to discuss in the next few slides. Okay, so for those of you that's brand new and that's never seen any of this before, my name is Esther Lessing and I am facilitating a free BABOK study group. So if you register, if you'd like to join us, simply register for free at baexcellence.com. You'll find a link in the menu there. And then you'll start receiving more than 30 training videos, study notes, quizzes, and you'll be able to use this program to prepare for ECBA, CCBA and CBAP exams, and it's all free. You'll also receive some special discounts because you're part of this exclusive community, and that will, that will enable you to be able to join in on some of the Iiba endorsed training courses we offer. I am CBAP certified and I'll be your trainer. And yes, we've got a very lively, fantastic Facebook community. You can find us by searching for BABOK version 3 Facebook on Facebook, and you'll be able to ask to be part of the group. So great, let's get stuck in. So with solution evaluation, let's just recap the different tasks. So the first task there is to measure solution performance. Then we've got analyze performance measures, assess solution limitations, assess enterprise limitations, and then to recommend actions to increase solution value. So let's start with the first task. So the task is measure solution performance. Let's remind ourselves of the purpose. So this is to define performance measures and use the data collected to evaluate the effectiveness of a solution in relation to the value that it brings. So with this task, let's look at measure solution performance, inputs and outputs. So with this one, we've got inputs, business objectives, because when we start looking at measuring the solution performance, we need to know what we are measuring it against. So we need to know what is the organization objectives with this particular solution. What are they expecting in terms of value? So this, if we look at the BABOK's way of describing this, they say the measurable results that the enterprise wants to achieve. So that's the business objectives, and that will give us a benchmark against which solution performance can be assessed. And now you can imagine, here we come, we want to analyze a particular solution, so we need that as an input. So the implemented solution with the status of external, we want that solution or component of a solution that exists in some form to be an input into this task. So it may be an operating solution, so something that is fully functional and working, or it might just be a prototype or even just a pilot or a beta solution of some sort. But we need something to come into this task to be able to measure its performance. Now, once we've done everything and we've considered all the elements like you would have learned in the knowledge area, the output of this would be that you would come up with some solution performance measures, which is the measures that provide information on how well the solution is performing and potentially could perform. Okay, so now let's take it to the next task and see how this story evolves. So the next task is we analyze the performance measures. So this is where we provide insights into the performance of a solution in relation to the value it brings. So if we look at the inputs and the outputs of analyzed performance measures, the first thing that is an input is the potential value. So this describes the value that may be realized by implementing the proposed future state. So it can be used as a benchmark against which solution performance can be evaluated. So this is if you have that information available where you know, okay, this is the potential value we're expecting. Let's compare it to what's happening at the moment. And that will help us make a decision for the future. And then the other option here for input, or the other input, I should say, is the solution performance measures. So this is what we've just had as an output from the previous task, remember? So this comes into this task because we need to measure and provide information on how well the solution is performing or could potentially be performing if we are evaluating a potential future state solution. So you need to keep in mind, are we assessing a current state situation like an operational solution, or are we looking at potentially implementing something? So we might be evaluating a beta or a pilot of some other solution, or not some other solution, some potential future solution, I mean. So keeping that in mind, once you've analyzed the performance measures that you've managed to gather from the previous task, you then end up with some solution performance analysis. And this is really the results of the analysis of measurements collected and recommendations to solve performance gaps and leverage opportunities to improve value. So you are not just providing measures that you've collected as part of the previous task, but you're actually doing some analysis where you're looking what is the gaps and what opportunities are we able to potentially make use of going forward to improve the value. Okay, so let's have a look at the next task. So then we look at the third task in this knowledge area, which is referred to as assess solution limitations. So this is very much where we determine the factors that's internal to the solution that restrict the full realization of value. Now, when we look at this, we've got two inputs, implementation solution, external. So this could be a solution that exists. And the solution may or may not be in operational use. It may be a prototype, like we said before, and the solution must be in use in some form in order for us to evaluate its limitations. So you still need that solution in order to assess the solution's limitations. So that's pretty logical, right? And then solution performance analysis. So this is the output from the previous task where we did some analysis on the performance measures. So this comes in as an input where we've got the results of the analysis of measurements collected and recommendations to solve the performance gaps and leverage opportunities to improve value. So this comes into this as an input because now we are using that to help us assess any solution limitations that might exist. And then, as you can imagine, I've put the output here as solution limitation. It's probably potentially solution limitations in the plural. But this is basically a description of the current limitations of the solution, including any constraints or defects that you might have come across. So that's the output of this task. And then second last task is assess enterprise limitations. So this is, as you would remember, to determine how factors external to the solution are restricting the value realization of the solution. So let's look at what comes in here. So as an input, we've got the current state description. So this is where we understand the current internal environment of the solution, including the environmental, cultural, and internal factors influencing the solution limitations. So this is actually very important information and a critical input for assess the enterprise limitations. You do have to have a good understanding of the current state. Then you also need the implemented or constructed solution with the status of external, a solution that exists. The solution may or may not be in operational use. It may be a prototype, and the solution must be in use in some form in order to be evaluated. So remember, we are still considering what are the enterprise limitations that is causing the solution not to function properly, or provided it's preventing the solution from giving us the proper value that the business expects. So then the third input is solution performance analysis. So here, this is what we've had as an output before. So this is the result of the analysis of measurements collected and recommendations to solve performance gaps and leverage opportunities to improve. So there may be some information in this that could aid us in assessing enterprise limitations that we've come across. That can help sketch the picture. And then as an output, we've got the enterprise limitations. Again, should be enterprise limitations. And this is a description of the current limitations of the enterprise, including how the solution performance is impacting the enterprise itself. So hopefully this makes sense to you. And I recommend that you go through the 2 videos that I recommended at the beginning of this video, just so that you can get a grasp on what each of these tasks are doing. Solution evaluation as a knowledge area can be a bit unfamiliar, and it can be a bit new because a lot of us don't necessarily get the opportunity to perform solution evaluations very often. So make sure you understand this particular knowledge area very well. Now, the last task that I'd like to run through with you is recommend actions to increase solution value. So the purpose here is to understand the factors that create differences between potential value and actual value, and to recommend a course of action to align them. So this is what we've almost worked for during this entire knowledge area: collecting the performance measures, analyzing them, looking at the limitations of the solution, then looking at the limitations of the enterprise, and now we are coming up with some recommendations. So in terms of the input, this is where you'll take the results from the enterprise limitations, where you assess the enterprise limitations. That becomes an input. So this is the description of the current limitations of the enterprise, including how the solution performance is impacting the enterprise, as well as you can imagine, the solution limitations. So this is where we look at a description of the current limitations of the solution, including constraints and defects. These are both inputs into this task. We do some review and we've got lots of considerations during recommendation, and then we come up with some recommended actions. And those are the outputs of this entire knowledge area in many ways, but specifically an output of this task. So this is where the recommendation of what should be done to improve the value of the solution within the enterprise. Okay, so if you take, especially with this knowledge area, take the solution evaluation. It's a little bit sequential. This is probably one of the few knowledge areas where tasks do flow one after the other. And it's a very nice way, by looking at this video after you've watched the other 2 again, to see how it all flows right to the end of getting to the recommended actions. And if you understand this picture and you understand how it flows and you can tell yourself that story, you'll be well on your way to be well prepared for the exam. Okay, so over to you. Again, please raise your questions in the Facebook group. So the Facebook group is called BABOK 3. If you're not there already, and what examples can you share? So if you've got any input to give us, please share it. And of course, what do you think we need to know for the exam for this knowledge area? Ask questions and we'll all contribute to help answer those questions. Thank you again. As you know, my name is Esther Lessing and I'm from Business Analysis Excellence. Thanks a lot.